the Pennsylvania Railroad Class S2. Behold and witness this unbreakable power! She is one of my favorite locomotives ever, actually, and a one-off experimental prototype steam turbine locomotive, constructed in a collaborative effort between Baldwin and Westinghouse. She predated the John Henry and the M1s we talked about before, and differs from them both in terms of layout, as well as the fact she is a direct drive turbine. She's not turbine electric. She's a true, pure turbine. And she, she's weird because she had the same problems turbine usually have, but technically, she functioned extremely well. She was numbered 6200 and delivered in September of 1944. She is the only known locomotive ever to have a 686 wheel arrangement in the white notation. And while being a turbine, did have a relatively familiar layout in terms of the classic steam locomotive design. She had side rods that weren't connected to a valve gear, but the turbine was geared to her center pair of axles, with the two outer ones being powered through the side rods. This was meant to prevent energy loss, and indeed, at speed, the S2 had a mechanical efficiency of 97%, which means only 3% of steam energy was lost within the propulsion equipment, which is basically unheard of. She was the largest, heaviest, and fastest direct drive turbine ever constructed. And originally, she was supposed to be a 484, but this was altered due to World War II, interestingly enough. See, there were wartime restrictions on light steel alloys. We needed them for, the war? So they had to use heavier materials, and that meant an increased weight and led to them using six-wheeled leading and trailing trucks. She actually would have been done sooner, but construction was also delayed by the war, taking place at the Baldwin plant in Eddystone, Pennsylvania. She actually had two turbines, not just one, but one was only for reversing. Her primary one was larger, and since you can't really use a direct turbine, backwards without doing something weird, they just made a smaller turbine just for reversing, which could actually propel her backwards at 22 miles per hour, so that was still alright. She was also technically a high-pressure steam locomotive, operating at a maximum of 310 psi, barely qualifying, but still qualifying. Her forward turbine operated at 6,900 horsepower, while her reversing turbine was 1,500 horsepower. A total tractive effort was estimated at 65,000 pounds of force, and she was meant for very high speeds, on at least one occasion hitting 110 miles per hour, though it is suspected she could have gone faster. In terms of how the direct drive worked, superheated steam was sent into her turbine at a rate of about 2,000 pounds per hour through 4 nozzles. Within the turbine were thousands of blades that transmitted steam energy to her transmission gear. The maximum rotation speed of the forward turbine was 9,000 RPM. And because there were 2 turbines and they didn't want them operating at the same time because that would be bad, she had an onboard monitoring system that ensured that the forward turbine could only be turned on as long as the reversing turbine was off. She had a very large boiler with a Bell-Pair style firebox, and a long combustion chamber was fitted. She had an automatic lubrication system installed too, connecting directly to her transmission case. This would allow for the driving gear wheels to be immersed in a lubricated reservoir filled with oil. And this allowed for lubrication for all her lubrication points. Everywhere that needed lubrication got lubrication, including her roller bearings, because yes, she had those, on all the axles, and that was accomplished through filtered pipes with the help of 2 steam pumps. Additionally, she had a Worthington pattern feed water heater for increased efficiency, and twin air pumps were installed for her braking system. She even had a radiator for cooling down the compressed air. When originally delivered, she had no smoke deflectors attached, but it was found that during low-speed operation, she had a habit of just sending the smoke back into the crew's faces, so she did get some smoke deflectors later in her life. Originally smaller ones, but it was found that those weren't enough, so they gave her large elephant ear style ones. It was actually pretty unusual for Pennsylvania Railroad to even attempt to use smoke deflectors. Only 3 K4s had smoke deflectors installed for experimental purposes, which were eventually just removed after the war was over. In fact, the S2 is the only Pennsylvania Railroad steam locomotive that had these large deflectors after the war. Her tender was also distinctive because it wasn't originally hers. It was meant for a Class L1, but later it'd be reassigned for K4s, but then later again changed over to the S2. Rebuilt for her needs. The tender was large, 16 wheels. Very similar in design to the tenders used on both the T1 and the S1 duplex drive locomotives. And she also had a very unique element that was designed by Westinghouse engineer Harry C. May, known as a fluid pressure control system. This particular system was really ahead of the time, as it allowed for controlling the starting, the running, the reversing, the power output, and speed, as well as limiting speed in both directions of operation, all from one single control lever installed in front of the engineer's seat. This significantly reduced the workload on her, making her actually pretty easy for the crew to deal with. They nicknamed her the Big Whoosh due to the fact she didn't sound like a traditional steam locomotive because she wasn't. And another benefit is that because she was a turbine and her side rods didn't work like regular side rods would on a regular steam locomotive, she didn't really have any hammer blow. She was very easy on the track despite her size, allowing for more power, which she had a lot of, and she was able to go extremely fast. Everyone that worked with her found her very impressive. However, she only lasted a few years. Delivered in 1944, she was withdrawn in 1949. Only about 5 years. Yeah, what happened? Well, it was the same problem that all the turbines usually have. You see, the problem with the S2 is not that she did not function. She functioned very, very, very well. But the turbine didn't like low speeds. Low power, actually. While at speed, she was incredibly, incredibly efficient. Railroads simply don't work this way. Sometimes you have to go slow. Sometimes you have to be at lower power. And the turbine didn't like that. It demanded more steam, more fuel at that low power output, being so hilariously uneconomical in that situation that it completely negated all the savings made when she was actually running at maximum efficiency. Above 30 miles per hour is where she used less steam than a conventional steam locomotive, but below that, she was an all-consuming beast that drove everybody nuts. And this compounded further issues that weren't experienced when she was operating at maximum efficiency. You see, because she needed more fuel at lower speed, that caused her firebox to run hotter, which had a habit of causing her stay bolts to break, which is not good. And though they acknowledged her impressive design, they just couldn't make her economical. It didn't help that after the war was over, railroads all over the nation were experiencing a serious decline in ridership. A lot of people were buying cars or taking planes in the emerging airline industry. The S2 was meant to be a passenger locomotive. She was probably powerful enough to handle freight, but even with that, she wouldn't have been efficient, and there were a lot of advantages demonstrated with diesels. She did participate in the 1948 Chicago Railroad Fair alongside one of the T1s, but in August of 1949, well, that low power issue caught up with her. It wasn't just the economy problem. See, because her firebox ran so hot under those conditions, it caused excessive thermal stress on a lot of her components, including the turbine itself. The boiler pressure had a habit of dropping significantly lower than design parameters, and that year is when the turbine was found to be seriously damaged to the point of needing outright replacement. This was absolutely not going to happen. She wasn't economical to run in general. She certainly wasn't economical to fix, and thus she was finally withdrawn and thrown into storage. Sadly, she would not be slated for preservation, and in 1952, she was officially retired and scrapped in 1953. It's a shame, because, man, is she so friggin' cool! I love this locomotive in almost every conceivable way, but she's a dang turbine, and can't make them work that easily on railroads, but there were so many good ideas within her. She functioned so well, just not in a way that generated money. She was too expensive. But she does live on in model form. You see, one of the most popular model trains, especially in O-gauge, made by Lionel, is the S2. They produced several models of her over the years. In fact, my grandfather and father both had versions of her. And I think part of this is because she was actually pretty easy to make in the accuracy sense. I mean, they're not completely accurate, but she doesn't have a proper valve gear. She only has straight side rods, just bolted to the wheels. That's what she had. So, in a model form, that's actually cheaper to make, I would say. There was less tooling, and she was pretty popular in this miniaturized setup. So, hey, that's something, at least. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.